And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 5 of the Look Back with Mac podcast. I'm Michael McKenzie. I'll be your host for today's episode. And I know it's been an inconsistent upload schedule with the Look Back with Matt podcast, but I'm going to try to get it back on track, an episode every week or two once we get enough stories to cover or give our opinions on. Once we get those, it's going to be inconsistent until things get back to normalcy. But I'm back right now, and this is a special episode because we've got our 2020 NFL first round mock draft. I'll be giving my picks 1 through 32. I've got a mock trade in there as well. I've got some good players dropping, some around 25 to 30 prospect players according to CBS Sports prospect rankings. That's what I use for this. I put together a mock draft last night and this morning using CBS's mock draft from their analysts and their prospect rankings and using teams' needs. I put together a mock draft. I changed some things here and there this afternoon in preparation for this podcast recording. So now I've got my mock draft. It's all set, and I'm going to go through the picks 1 through 32. So let's get this thing started. Number 1 pick, the Bengals on the clock with the first overall pick, and no doubt they're going to be taking Joe Burrow, quarterback from LSU, put together maybe one of the best seasons in college football history, if not the best season in college football history, winning the Heisman by a wide margin, and Burrow being selected number 1 overall makes it the third straight year where the number 1 overall selection is the previous year's Heisman winner in college football. So we'll see if that trend continues in the 2021 NFL draft. But Joe Burrow, it's been shown that when he has the right players and personnel and coaches and playbook and everything surrounding him, he can be an elite level player. He can be a GOAT in the NFL. But I think he needs the right people around him. He needs the right coaches. He needs the right playbook. He needs the right players surrounding him. And I think that the Bengals can put that together within the next 2 to 3 years. Right now, he's got a veteran receiver in A.J. Green who's on the decline of his career. He's out of his prime. He had an injury last year, didn't play at all. He's got Tyler Boyd out there at wide receiver, and he's shown he can be a guy who can make some acrobatic catches. He's a decent route runner. He is an underrated receiver in the league, in my opinion. And we've got John Ross III, who showed at the beginning of the season he can be an explosive threat. He went down with an injury in week 3, I believe it was. So Ross, Boyd, and Green, that's not a terrible receiving core, but it's not the best in the league. I think that if Joe Burrow went to the Panthers or the Panthers were to somehow trade up, that would be the best fit for Burrow because that's where Joe Brady is. And I think Joe Brady is the coach for Joe Burrow. But back to Burrow himself, I think he needs the right coaches and the right personnel and the right players around him. At LSU, he had a 5-star, 4-star, all offensive line, and they dominated defensive lines left and right, and he got all the time in the world to throw. He had a nice back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was an underappreciated back until about the SEC championship game when people realized, this kid's good. He can really help LSU win a national championship. And once they looked at the film, once we realized, he's going to be either limited or out for that Peach Bowl semifinal against Oklahoma, they started to notice Helaire was a big threat to defenses. So Joe Burrow's got Joe Mixon in the backfield with him this time. And at LSU, he had Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Thaddeus Moss, exceptional receivers in college football, left and right. He doesn't have exceptional NFL receivers left and right like he did at LSU. But he's got decent receivers around him. I think that Joe Burrow is going to be a player that brings the Bengals back up to where they were in 2013, 2014, a playoff team. They can make the playoffs. They're a legitimate threat maybe to win the AFC North possibly, maybe win it one year. But it's going to take some time. They're going to need to draft right. They're going to need to sign some free agents. They're going to need to make the right moves in the offseason if they want that to happen. But I think that Joe Burrow is a step in the right direction for the Bengals. He goes number 1. Number 2 overall pick, Washington Redskins. It's Chase Young, edge rusher from the Ohio State University. He's a game wrecker. He can force defensive coaches to completely change their entire game plan when he's on the field. You got to run away from him. You got to double team him. And Chase Young on the edge, it was shown in the Wisconsin and Penn State games. If you go back and look at that film, his stat line against Wisconsin, 5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Against Penn State, he had 3.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 4 tackles for loss. This kid is elite. He is going to be an elite defensive edge rusher for the Washington Redskins. He's going to pair up with Dwayne Haskins, and the Redskins are taking a step in the right direction. Don't be surprised within the next year or 2 years from now, the Redskins are a team that can threaten to win the NFC East once again. Dwayne Haskins is the future quarterback for the Redskins. If he can live up to the expectations people set for him in last year's draft when people thought he was going to go to the Giants in a top 10 pick going number 6 overall, Dwayne Haskins can be an elite quarterback in the NFL. And on the defensive side, you got Chase Young on the edge. They drafted Montez Sweat, who could be a steal coming out of last year's draft class once everything's said and done. Once those players are out of their primes, getting ready to retire, we could be looking back on that draft class and going, Montez Sweat, nice first-round steal there for the Redskins. I believe that he is going to develop into a great defensive player for the Redskins. They're drafting right. They're making the right moves. They're still a couple away from being an elite team, but they're making some right steps, and they got the number 2 overall pick this year, and they've got a beauty in Chase Young now on that defensive side of the football. Number 3, the Detroit Lions. I don't have this pick moving. Some people have the Dolphins trading up to 3 to take Tua or Justin Herbert, just to make sure the Chargers don't swoop in and steal anything. The 1-2 picks are essentially set in stone right now. It's 3 through 6 that we're watching here in this first round on that top 10. Number 3, I got the Lions keeping their pick, and they're going to pick defensive back from The Ohio State University, Jeff Okudah. 3 Ohio State products, 2 players who graduated with Ohio State going in the top 3. He is a lockdown corner, a guy who I thought should have won the Thorpe Award last year. He can contain almost any receiver that he steps up with, and that's on an NFL level. He contained every receiver that stepped up to him last year on the college level. Allowed 1 touchdown, no pass interferences, no defensive holdings. He said it himself at the combine. Go back and look at the tape. He is an elite corner. The Lions have a good pick here, and they're going to use it on Jeff Okudah because that offense is underrated. You got Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones Jr. at wide receiver for Matt Stafford to throw to. And if Matt Stafford was on a better team, let's be honest, he'd have a Hall of Fame career right now. He's got those 2 receivers to throw to. He's got Kerryon Johnson, a running back who went down with an injury. He was a pretty solid back for the Lions. They're good on that offensive side. Maybe improve the offensive line in the next couple of rounds after this first, but get that defensive side bolstered up, especially after trading Darius Slay, letting him go. Jeff Okudah, number 3 overall pick, defensive back from Ohio State. And the DBU, I think that this year it's over. DBU, NFLU, where is the school to go and prepare for an NFL career? I think that this draft class will make it set in stone. It is Ohio State. Number 4, I don't have this pick moving either. The Giants are going to select at number 4, and they're going to take linebacker from Clemson University, Isaiah Simmons. He is a very versatile player on that defensive side of the football. He can play nearly anywhere on the defensive side. He can play safety. He can play corner against certain receivers. He can play on that defensive line as an edge rusher, maybe not as a nose tackle, but he can blitz. He can drop back in coverage. He can go man-to-man on a lot of receivers in the game. He can play safety in zone coverage. This kid is very versatile. And the reason people have him dropping to number 7 in some mock drafts is because the right team needs to draft him. You need to have the right defensive playbook. You need to have a lot of everything to make sure you're using Isaiah Simmons the right way. I think that Dave Gettleman here at number 4, maybe it's the stupid pick to go with Isaiah Simmons because maybe we don't know if the Giants are going to be able to use him right. But I think that the right pick is to go with Isaiah Simmons. And if you can't use him right in year 1, change up some defensive personnel because Isaiah Simmons is going to be a guy like Lawrence Taylor, in my opinion. They're going to need to build their defense around this kid because he might even be the number 1 overall prospect in this draft class. ESPN has him listed as number 1 overall. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but Simmons is a very versatile, very athletic, great player in this draft. He should go top 5. I think he goes number 4 to the Giants. Now, number 5, the Dolphins. A lot of people are concerned with Tua's health. Is he good enough to play? Is he healthy enough to build a franchise around? Or are we going to have to go with Justin Herbert or maybe even Jordan Love if he looks like the better decision? I think the Dolphins go with Tua. He's got an exceptional arm, precision passing all over the field. And on his best day, when he's really feeling it in all aspects of the game, he can hurt you with his legs. When he needs to, he can hurt you with his legs. On his best day, he can hurt you with his legs. He is a little bit of a dual threat quarterback that I don't think a lot of people talk about enough. He's got an arm and precision passing. That is why you want to build a franchise around him. He is one of the better quarterbacks we've seen in a while. A lot of people thought he was going to go number one, tank for Tua. Then he gets the hip injury. And now we're talking about Joe Burrow going number one overall because he had a fantastic season. He is NFL ready. He's ready to go at that number one overall position. I think that Tua goes number 5 to the Dolphins. I think that they take a risk. They go with Tua because he is the overall better player. He might be more injury prone, but talent-wise, athleticism-wise, he's the better player. And I think that the best decision for the Dolphins is to go with Tua Tagovailoa at number 5. Number 6, the Chargers. I have them taking quarterback Justin Herbert because I don't think they're going to be content with Tyrod Taylor at the QB position. He is not a franchise QB. They need a guy to replace Phillip Rivers for the long haul. So you need to go into this first round draft. You got a top 10 pick. This is a quarterback heavy class. So you got to go in and take a quarterback. Even if it's going to be the third quarterback taken in the draft, you got to go with a QB. You got to try to get that guy that's going to replace Phillip Rivers. I think Justin Herbert is one of those guys. He's got one of the better arms in the draft, and when needed, he can get on the ground and run the football. He's a physical runner when he wants to run that football, but he's got a heck of an arm. And I've said it, he can hurt you with his legs. I think that he is going to be one of the underrated. He is one of the underrated players in the draft. CES has him listed as the 18th overall prospect. But Herbert is a dual threat guy when you look at the tape, when you look back at his past games. He can be a dual threat guy. And maybe he can classify as a dual threat quarterback in the NFL. Who knows? But I think Herbert goes number 6. Panthers picking number 7 overall, Derek Brown Jr., defensive tackle, Auburn. He's a versatile defensive lineman who is hard to run the ball by. You can't get the ball by this kid. He is exceptional in the run game, defensive-wise. And he's going to force QBs out of the pocket. He's not going to get sacks. He's not going to be able to finish in the pocket. He doesn't have that sort of athleticism, but he can force you to rush out of the pocket or you're going to get hammered by him. A lot of QBs he's faced have had the smarts, had the brains to get out of the pocket. But Brown is going to force you to try to make throws on the run or step out of the pocket and force some quick throws. He can be a disruptive pass rusher, but he is not a guy to rack up sacks. He's a guy to force QBs out, maybe get a couple of QB hits. He's not a sack guy. He's a guy that can stop the run game. Number 8, the Cardinals are going to take offensive tackle from Iowa, Trent Wirfs. He's very athletic at his size, and he can handle almost any challenge off the edge. He didn't get a chance to face guys like Chase Young and maybe Zach Bond from Wisconsin. I have him going in the first round as well. But any challenge he handled off the edge, either right tackle or left tackle, he can play both tackle positions. He handled a lot of the challenges that were thrown his way, especially against Minnesota. Minnesota was the game. You can go back and look at Wirfs. He had one of his better games on that day. Wirfs, athletic kid for his size, and he can be a great addition to the offensive line at right tackle or left tackle. Number 8, Cardinals, it's Trent Wirfs. Number 9, Jaguars. Next up, defensive back from Florida, C.J. Henderson. And there's that debate of DBU. Is it Florida? Is it Ohio State? Is it LSU? He has size and speed to be a great corner. And he's got great recovery speed. If he's gonna break off, receiver gets away from him, he's got that recovery speed to get back in coverage. If the QB can't see him in that half a second that he's open enough, Henderson's going to make you pay with that recovery speed. And with the Jaguars just getting rid of Jalen Ramsey not too long ago, they need to fill a void in at that defensive back spot. C.J. Henderson fits in well there. Browns, they're going to take Jedrick Wills, offensive lineman from Alabama University. He's very hard to get by in the run game. He's a great run blocker, and the Browns need that. Their offensive line is one of the weaker spots in their team. They filled a void at tight end by getting Austin Hooper. They might trade Odell, who isn't a good fit with Baker Mayfield. I think that the better move for the Browns right now is to trade Beckham. You got Baker Mayfield and a quarterback who is doing just fine without Odell. And on that defensive side of the football, they can build it up there. You got Myles Garrett on that defensive line. You got Denzel Ward in the secondary leading things there. Greedy Williams, a second-round steal. I think the one place the Browns need to improve on is that offensive line. Jedrick Wills Jr. can be a good fit, good start to that buildup of the offensive line for the Browns. That's it for the top 10. We're going to go to number 11. We got the Jets. They're going to take a wide receiver. Oklahoma product, CeeDee Lamb. He is an elite pass catcher. He can make almost any catch if you just throw the ball in his catch radius, and his yards after catch ability is insane. He's a great person. If you want to get those yards after catch, CeeDee Lamb's the guy to go with. Once he catches the ball, you've got to bring him down immediately or he's going to be off. He's great at breaking tackles. He's great at juking. He's a great runner, and he's a guy you can go with the jet sweep with. He's a fantastic runner, but he's got the hands to be at wide receiver and the speed to have some fantastic route running. CeeDee Lamb goes number 11 to the Jets. Number 12, the Raiders picking. They're going to take another wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy from Alabama. He's an elite runner with speed to easily break open for big plays. We saw that in the Auburn game. He made some big plays against the Tigers in the rivalry game that Alabama eventually lost. But Jerry Jeudy has shown all year in college, had shown in his final college year, that he can be a guy that can break off for the big play, break off down the sideline on the deep go route and get a big play. He can make those couple in and out moves and get free. He's an elite route runner, and he's the guy to go with when you need that big bomb play. You need that 40, 50-yard play to try to get things energized on the offensive side of the football. Jerry Jeudy's your guy to go with. 13, we got the 49ers. This pick is via the Colts. This is not my mock trade. This is a real trade that was made. The Colts giving their first-round pick to the 49ers in a trade. I think the 49ers bolster up that defensive backfield, that secondary. They're going to take Xavier McKinney, defensive back from Alabama. He can make a play nearly anywhere, not on the D-line. He can play linebacker. He can guard the running back. He can drop back and play safety coverage. He can play man-on-man. He could play anywhere on the defensive side of the football that's not on that defensive line. And he is a great person to send on that delayed blitz. Where you got the B gap open, and you're sending him in safety coverage. The delayed blitz, bring him into that gap. That running back's already on an assignment, double team that edge rusher, and McKinney's going to come in and get a delayed blitz sack. He's a great, versatile defensive back from Alabama, and he's going to fit in well with the 49ers scheme on defense, which was a great defense last year, but it showed later in the year that against the great teams, the great offenses in Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City, if they want to win a Super Bowl, they're going to need to bolster that defensive backfield, and Xavier McKinney's a step in the right direction for the 49ers. Take a breather real quick while we get to pick number 14. The Buccaneers picking. They're going to take offensive lineman Andrew Thomas from Georgia. He started all 4 years for Georgia. He's an experienced player, and he's a natural fit at left tackle to protect the blind side of a right-handed quarterback. Just so happens the Buccaneers have Tom Brady this year. Tom Brady didn't have a great offensive line at New England. He came to Tampa Bay for better weapons and a better offensive line. The Buccaneers need to boost that offensive line, and Andrew Thomas, an experienced 4-year starter at Georgia who's great at blocking that blind side for Tom Brady. It's a perfect fit for the Buccaneers. Andrew Thomas is just the perfect fit to go to Tampa Bay and start his first year. He's an experienced 4-year starter, started freshman to senior year at Georgia, and he's a perfect fit at Tampa Bay. That's my personal take on it. Number 15, Broncos picking. They're going to take wide receiver Henry Ruggs from Alabama. They do have Cortland Sutton. They do have Noah Fant, but those are non-experienced players. Emmanuel Sanders is out there, so they need to fill that void, and they're going to keep this receiving core young. They're going with Alabama product Henry Ruggs, the third wide receiver taken in about the last 4 or 5 picks in my mock draft. He's got great speed, exceptional hands, and he can rack up them yards after catch. He's another guy like CeeDee Lamb, who has, he doesn't have more speed. He's just a little under CeeDee Lamb. He's got nearly all of the same attributes. He's got great speed. He's got exceptional hands. And he can make those yards after catch. CeeDee Lamb is a better version of Henry Ruggs. That's my comparison between the two. Ruggs may not have the same speed as CeeDee Lamb, but it's pretty dang close. He may not have the same ability to make the catches CeeDee Lamb, but it's pretty dang close. And he may not be able to get the same amount of yards after the catch as CeeDee Lamb, but it's pretty dang close. I think CeeDee Lamb is a better receiver than Henry Ruggs, but not by even just a little bit of a margin. It is about this close between Ruggs and Lamb. I just think Lamb is a better receiver than Henry Ruggs, even though they have the same attributes. And when you look at them side by side, you're almost seeing the same receiver, except CeeDee Lamb has a little more height than Ruggs, which is why I have him going higher than Ruggs. That's the number 15 pick. Number 16, the Atlanta Falcons are taking linebacker Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma. That offensive side of the ball, it's fine. You got a veteran in Larry Fitzgerald who might retire soon. You might want to go with a wide receiver, but the top 3 receivers in the draft are already gone. Maybe if Ruggs was available here, I would have the Falcons taking Ruggs, but that's not going to happen. Excuse me. I am talking about the Cardinals right now. That is my bad. This is the Falcons we're talking about. Kenneth Murray, linebacker from Oklahoma. He can make virtually any play on the ball. He's very explosive to the ball, and the Falcons' offensive side of the football, let's talk about that. It's fine. Julio Jones is wide receiver. One of the best in the game. You just added Todd Gurley at running back. Maybe if he can have a year like he did in 2018, 2017, this offense might be virtually unstoppable. Matt Ryan, an MVP just a few years ago. Maybe if he can find that magic. If these players can find their magic on the offensive side of the ball, they're fine. So they need to bolster that defensive side, and I think Kenneth Murray is that start. That you might have Vic Beasley there at linebacker, but Kenneth Murray is the right decision here. He fits in well with the Falcons' defensive scheme. They have a need at the linebacker position. He can make any play on the ball, and he's very explosive to the ball. So it's a perfect fit for the Falcons, I believe. Next, Cowboys picking at 17, Penn State's own Yetur Gross-Matos, edge rusher. He's got strong hands and great power. He's great athleticism. He's overpowering almost any offensive tackle. It was seen last year. He made some plays against the Ohio State offensive line, which was considered one of the better offensive lines in college football. So Yetur Gross-Matos has proven himself on tape, especially in some of the bigger games. Gross-Matos is going to be a steal. People have him ranked at 20th prospect. I think he might be a top 15. Yetur Gross-Matos is one of the more underrated players in the draft, and as much as it pains me that the Cowboys are going to be able to get him, he's going to be a steal at this point in the draft, I believe. Number 18, the Dolphins are picking right here via the Steelers. They're going to take defensive back Christian Fulton from LSU. They got rid of some of the key players in the secondary, including Minkah Fitzpatrick. The offensive side of the ball is good. They're taking Tua in the top 5. So they're fine on the offensive side. They need to bolster that defensive backfield, which downgraded in athleticism and skill and basically anything greatly once Fitzpatrick left for Pittsburgh. They need to get Christian Fulton from LSU. He is rarely out of position at the top of routes, excels in press man coverage. They need a guy that can play press man coverage. We haven't seen that at Miami in quite a while. So Christian Fulton fills a void in the defensive backfield for the Dolphins. I've got him going in 18. I got 19. The Raiders are picking here. I've got my my only mock trade of the first round. The Saints trading up to pick at 19, just ahead of the Jaguars. They take Jordan Love. Many people have the Saints taking QB. I'm going to hop on that train. I truly do not think they think Taysom Hill is the future franchise quarterback of that franchise once Drew Brees decides to retire. They need to take a quarterback in this draft, and Jordan Love, he falls to 19, and he can make nearly every throw on the field. He might have had an off year last year, very forgettable, but he can create plays with his feet. He can throw the ball anywhere on the field. He's a playmaker. Jordan Love is a playmaker on the football field. That is what Drew Brees is. He can make plays. He can make throws. He might not be able to make as many plays with his feet now, but the Saints, Jordan Love is a good fit for when Drew Brees leaves. He is a playmaker. He can make a lot of throws. It's a great fit for New Orleans, and I think that they trade up to make this pick so that the Patriots don't steal him. I think that if Jordan Love fell to the Patriots would most certainly pick him. But they're not, and I think the Patriots start now for the tank for Trevor. Keep that in mind. Number 20, the Jaguars are going to pick the number 9 prospect in the draft according to CBS Sports Prospect Rankings, Javon Kinlaw, defensive lineman, South Carolina. He's an elite pass rusher, has strength to overpower offensive linemen, and he's got a steal. He's dropping to number 20. He's the number 9th overall prospect. The Jaguars got a bargain right here. They could have picked him with their first round pick, but he falls to their second first round pick. So Kinlaw, a steal for the Jags this late in the draft, a great pass rusher. He could replace Calais Campbell on that defensive line. And the Jaguars rebuild starts in this draft. And this draft, I think that the Jaguars, if they draft the way I see it, they're going to get an A+. Javon Kinlaw goes number 20 to the Jags. 21, the Eagles, they need a wide receiver. So they're going to go with Justin Jefferson from LSU. He's got a wide catch radius. He can make almost any catch as long as you put it within his catch radius, within where he can catch the ball. And he's got a knack for finding weak spots in that and secondaries and all over the field. That is why he is almost always open for Joe Burrow. He can see that weak spot. He can see this safety. He's going to drop back in coverage on Chase right here. Chase to my left. He's going to take a deep route. This safety is going to go and double team him so that there's no big play. I can hit a post route down the middle. If this safety doesn't come over on me, I'm wide open, and that safety is going to go cover Thaddeus Moss over here. Justin Jefferson just has a knack for knowing where to get open, how to get open. He's a great route runner, and knowing where the weak spots are going to be. He is going to be open a lot for Carson Wentz to throw to. He is going to be one of the very few targets Wentz has had in his tenure with the Philadelphia Eagles. Jefferson goes number 21 to Philadelphia. Number 22, Vikings picking. They're going to take offensive lineman Mekhi Becton from Louisville. He moves way better than his size indicates. He is very fast. He's very quick for his size, and he excels in the run game. He's a great run blocker for the Vikings, which is great because they're going to have to rely on Dalvin Cook a lot more now that Stephon Diggs is vibing over there in Buffalo with Josh Allen. They have to rely on the run game a lot more now. Dalvin Cook, he showed it last year. He can be an elite running back in the NFL, so he needs a little bit better pass blocking. Becton fits that stereotype. He fits that void, maybe, for the Vikings. He fits that description for the Vikings. So I couldn't find the word. And he's a steal at this point as well. He's ranked number 17 in the prospect rankings for CBS Sports. People skipping on offensive linemen in my mock draft. So I think Becton falls number 22 to the Vikings, and they get an absolute steal. A great assist for Dalvin Cook's running game, which I said it, they're going to have to rely on it a lot more. Number 23, the Patriots picking now. They're going to have to take an offensive lineman themselves. They're going to go with Josh Jones, who's incredibly athletic for his size and his solid blocking any pass rusher. But now that Tom Brady's gone, maybe they don't need a pass rusher as much as they need a run blocker, but Becton is not there, so they're going to take Josh Jones. Becton was ranked the 13th in CBS Sports rankings now that I'm actually looking at it. Jones ranked 17th in the CBS Sports prospect rankings. But Jones, he's incredibly athletic for his size. He can move quicker than maybe a lot of people would think if you took a first glance at him, but he's a great pass blocker for Jarrett Stidham or Brian Hoyer, whoever decides to start at New England. Unfortunately, they don't have Tom Brady anymore for throwing the ball, but he's a great pass blocker, and in the future, once they get their franchise quarterback, even if it is Jarrett Stidham, Josh Jones could be a good long-term fit for the Patriots. Josh Jones out of Houston goes number 23 with New England. Number 24, Raiders have their second pick right here, and that is off of the mock trade with the Saints. They're going to take safety Grant Delpit from LSU. Now, this is where I had my switch. I had Kinlaw falling to the Raiders at 24 and the Jaguars taking Delpit. I got that switching up. Now that I looked at it, the Jags, they got a cornerback already. Excuse me. Who did the Jags? Where I had the Jags picking first. I did have them picking a defensive back, C.J. Anderson. So they filled a void in that defensive backfield. They're going to go take a defensive lineman now. So Delpit's going to fall safety to the Raiders. They need to strengthen that defensive backfield, which has been nearly non-existent in the past couple of years over John Gruden's tenure. He can play anywhere in that defensive backfield, in that secondary, and he makes a lot of plays in the middle of the field, especially. When you look on his tape at LSU, he's making his plays in the middle of the field. He's making his plays in open space. He's a guy who can shut down a play in the middle of the field, shut down a play in open space. Delpit's not a guy you want to see coming in to tackle you when you're in open space or trying to run down the middle of the field. Delpit can make a lot of plays in the middle of the field, and he can line up virtually anywhere in that secondary. Delpit falls number 24 to the Raiders. Number 25, the Vikings with their second pick. They're going to pick defensive back A.J. Terrell. They're going to go and fix the defensive side of the ball now. Xavier Rhodes is gone. He was burnt toast all of last year, so they need to fill his spot. A.J. Terrell fits perfect from Clemson. He's a speedy corner, excels in press man coverage, and can play in all coverage. He can drop back in zone coverage. He can play man-to-man. He can play press man. A.J. Terrell, whatever coverage you want, he's got you covered, no pun intended. The Clemson defensive back, I think his coming out party was against Ohio State, even though in the first half that was not very well at all. But that second half, him and his defensive backfield buddies, that secondary showed up, and A.J. Terrell led the way for Clemson. So I think that his coming out party was against Ohio State, and that is the reason he's going to go first round, number 25, to the Vikings. The Vikings get their Xavier Rhodes replacement. Number 26, the Dolphins with their third first-round pick. They're going to take a running back this time out of Georgia, DeAndre Swift. A lot of people have Jonathan Taylor being the first running back picked, maybe even J.K. Dobbins. Some people thought it might be Travis Etienne, but he's returning to Clemson, the nightmare scenario for college football. For college football teams, at least, not named the Clemson Tigers. But DeAndre Swift goes first. Here's why. Because he is a speedy, explosive running back, but he can also line up at a receiver as well as he can line up as a tailback. He is about as much a receiver as he is a running back. He can line up at both sides of the field. You never know how you're going to use You never know on the defensive side how DeAndre Swift's going to be used, what he's going to be doing in a certain play. His pass blocking could get a little bit better, but he can line up a receiver just as he can line up at tailback. He's an explosive, speedy guy. He is a good route runner when you line him up a receiver. He's comfortable either a receiver or running back. That is why he goes before Jonathan Taylor or J.K. Dobbins does at 26. Seahawks 27, they're going to take linebacker Zach Bond out of Wisconsin, who's a solid coverage linebacker. He can also get after the QB depending on the defensive play call. Whatever defensive play call it is, Zach Bond's going to have you covered. He's got a great explosive first step. And if you look back at the Ohio State game, that's where you're going to see the best film of Zach Bond. Even though Ohio State won that game 38-7, I'm talking about the first meeting in Columbus between these two teams. Zach Bond got after the quarterback, and he was pretty good in coverage. Even though it was a rainy day, they were running the football with Dobbins a lot. And that second game, Zach Bond didn't have nearly as well of didn't have nearly the same performance as he did that first game. But Bond, good pick for the Seahawks here. He's a coverage linebacker who can also get after the quarterback. And the film you want to look at with this guy is Ohio State game when they played in Columbus. He got after Justin Fields. He led that charge for that defensive front seven that ended up getting 5 sacks on Justin Fields. And he had some decent coverage plays when you go back and look at his film. Number 28, the Ravens are going to be picking, and they're going to take a linebacker themselves. Patrick Queen out of LSU. He's smooth at dropping into coverage, and he can diagnose plays better than anyone. He can sniff out a play. Middle linebacker, perfect for him because the middle linebacker is the quarterback of the defense. You hear that a lot if you watch football or listen to football analysis enough. The middle linebacker is the quarterback of the defense, and Patrick Queen can diagnose almost any play. But he is exceptional at diagnosing screenplays. Patrick Queen is not a guy you want to try to run a screenplay against unless you're going to have him block or unless he's blitzing. If Patrick Queen is dropping back in coverage and you're going to run a screenplay, not a very good decision because Queen can sniff out a screenplay better than anyone in this draft class. So Queen, a linebacker pick for the Ravens. They're going to try to bolster that defense that got just ripped apart by the Titans, who are picking next. At number 29, they're going to take a defensive lineman, Ross Blacklock, out of TCU. He's got an explosive first step, high motor to chase backside on plays directed away from him. You're running the ball to the right. He's lined up on the left side of that D-line. He's going to chase that running back and more than likely be involved in the play or be close to the play. He's going to be involved in any play that is stopped within about 3 yards of that line of scrimmage. Blacklock is involved in a lot of plays. You're going to see him making some tackles. You run at him. You throw near his way. He's going to try to be involved in that play. But that first step is the most important step, and he's got an explosive one. He can get after the quarterback pretty good. Not the best in the draft, but not the worst in the draft. He is going to be a good pick right here for the Titans, try to bolster that defensive line, which maybe was one of the weaker spots for the Titans. Maybe it was their defense overall, but their defense did a pretty dang good job of stopping Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. We don't know about them in the playoffs, but that defense also did a pretty good job of stopping Tom Brady and the Patriots. The only two knacks you can throw on that are the Patriots dynasty's over and the Ravens can't win in the playoffs. There are two knacks you can throw on those defensive performances, but nonetheless, they were fantastic defensive performances, and you can't disregard anything like the Titans did in the playoffs. Number 30, Packers picking Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver, Arizona State. He dominates 1v1 coverage. He's going to need a safety to come in and help in coverage on him. He's also a TD threat whenever the ball is thrown his way. Whenever he makes a catch, whenever the ball is in his hands, he's always a threat to break off a big run, maybe even house it. He's always a touchdown threat when the ball is thrown his way, even if it's on a 5-7 yard crossing route or a 3-yard slant route. He's a TD threat whenever the ball is thrown his way and whenever the ball is in his hands. And he's gonna require two people on him because he's dominant in coverage in 1v1 coverages. He's gonna run an in and out route, running a post route, bench route, or he's gonna run a bench route this way, post route in. He requires a safety on him because of how dominant he is in 1v1 coverage. Packers. Aaron Rodgers gets another target to throw to in Brandon Ayuk. 49ers picking number 31. They're going to take defensive back Trayvon Diggs. It was evident towards the end of that run for the 49ers, especially in the Super Bowl, they need another guy in that defensive backfield, and Trayvon Diggs fits that role. Coming out of Alabama, we did see Richard Sherman have a pretty good year, but against the better teams, against the best of the best offenses, 49ers want to go back to that Super Bowl and win it. They're going to need to bolster that defensive backfield. They're going to need to make sure that secondary is insanely good. They need to take Trayvon Diggs. He's excellent in coverage. He's got the size and speed to match up with virtually any big receiver, and he's a downfield playmaker. He can make a lot of plays downfield for the 49ers, and that was something they were missing all season. Even you can say Richard Sherman makes some downfield plays, but they need somebody to consistently make downfield plays against the best of the best. They need to pick to win the Super Bowl. They got there. Now they need to win it. And Trayvon Diggs is maybe even the guy that can help them do it in a couple of years. Last pick of the first round, number 32. The Chiefs are picking. They don't need to fix anything. Everything's working fine. The one thing that they may need to pick is offensive line. So they're going to take Cesar Ruiz, offensive lineman out of Michigan. He's a specialist in the run game who can sniff out a delayed blitz or any stun a defense is going to try to throw at you. He's pretty good at diagnosing on that defensive line, especially at the center position. And the one thing the Chiefs need to do maybe is develop that run game. Don't rely on Patrick Mahomes so much. So you're going to need some run blockers, and Cesar Ruiz fits that description. So that's it. That's my 2020 NFL first round mock draft. Let's go back over that one more time. We're going to go by each pick. 1, Bengals. They're going to take Joe Burrow, quarterback of LSU. 2, Redskins. Edge rusher from Ohio State, Chase Young. Number 3, the Detroit Lions are taking defensive back from The Ohio State University, Jeff Okudah. The Giants are going to take linebacker Isaiah Simmons at Clemson with the number 4 overall pick. Number 5 overall pick, Dolphins are going to take quarterback from Alabama, Tua Tagovailoa. Number 6, Chargers, Justin Herbert, quarterback, Oregon. 7, Panthers, Derek Brown Jr., defensive tackle, Auburn. 8, Cardinals, Tristan Wirth, offensive tackle, Wirfs. Offensive tackle from Iowa. 9, Jaguars, C.J. Henderson, defensive back from Florida. 10, Browns, Jedrick Wills Jr., offensive lineman from Alabama. 11, Jets, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver, Oklahoma. 12, Raiders, Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver, Alabama. 13, 49ers, defensive back, Xavier McKinney, Alabama. 14, Buccaneers, Andrew Thomas, offensive lineman, Georgia. 15, Broncos, Henry Ruggs, wide receiver, Alabama. 16, Falcons, Kenneth Murray, linebacker, Oklahoma. 17, Cowboys, Yetur Gross-Matos, edge rusher from Penn State University. 18th overall pick, the Dolphins are going to take Christian Fulton, a defensive back from LSU. 19th, our mock trade, the Saints trade up with the Raiders to take Jordan Love, quarterback from Utah State. The 20th pick, the Jaguars are going to get a steal and Javon Kinlaw, defensive lineman from South Carolina. The 21st pick, the Eagles are going to take Justin Jefferson, wide receiver from LSU. 22, Vikings, Mekhi Becton, offensive lineman from Louisville to help with their run game. 23, Patriots are going to take Josh Jones, offensive lineman from Houston. 24, the Raiders are going to take Grant Delpit, safety from LSU. Number 25, the Vikings are taking defensive back A.J. Terrell from Clemson. Number 26, the Dolphins are going to take DeAndre Swift, running back from Georgia, with their third first-round pick. The Seahawks are going to take Zach Bond, linebacker from Wisconsin, at 27. Ravens at 28 are taking Patrick Queen, linebacker from LSU. 29, the Titans are going to take Ross Blacklock from the defensive lineman from TCU. Packers are going to take Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver from Arizona State. 31st, the 49ers are going to take their second defensive back in the first round, Trayvon Diggs from Alabama. 32, the Chiefs are going to take Cesar Ruiz, offensive lineman from Michigan. That wraps it up for the 2020 Michael McKenzie Look Back with Back podcast mock draft. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Draft coming up soon. We'll see who takes who, what trades are made, and whether Tua goes 5 or Herbert goes 5 or Tua goes 3 or 4. If the Dolphins decide to trade up. A lot of questions to be answered on draft night. I answered some of the questions with my personal answers, what I think is going to happen. Leave some of your predictions in the comments. Leave some of your predictions. If you think I'm wrong or you disagree with something or you change something, just let me know down below. And this is Michael McKenzie signing off for episode 5 of the Look Back with Mac podcast, 2020 NFL Draft, NFL Mock Draft Special.